Hello everybody and welcome to a new video. Yes, it's time. Let's talk about the Xbox Series X. Like I promised in my previous video, I will tell you about how my experience was or is at the moment after quite some time in use. So it's way over a month of use of the Series X. And yes, I've done, of course, a few things with the Series X. First of all, of course, gaming, because most of all, it is a gaming console. But I did some other things as well. And I think most of you already also have tried this. Because especially if you use your console in a gaming room while your wife can still watch the TV, then you maybe have like a little hobby room where you can play your games in. And so you might want to try watching movies on it. Yes, it's got a 4K Blu-ray player in it. So yes, you can play the 4K movies just like you could on the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X. But they removed something. Yeah. You cannot play any longer 3D movies. Microsoft, please bring back the support for 3D movies, because now I'm forced to watch my 3D movies on the PlayStation 3. That is at the moment the only console that plays the 3D movies reasonably properly. Except for that I had a better image quality on my Xbox One X, but I gave that one to my father. So all I've got is to play 3D movies is either the PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4 Pro. Well, since my PlayStation 4 Pro doesn't want to play nicely with me, I've talked about this in a previous video, I use it as least as possible until I've got the PlayStation 5, because when I turn the PlayStation 4 Pro on, my mood is going up from feel like gaming into never mind, I'll go to bed. So, that was that. That was the 3D part that they skipped. Now on to the gaming experience. As you could see in my previous video where I showed you the loading times of some games, you could also see the results of that. How fast they booted up, and I did a little bit of gaming, so you could see the actual from the moment you press the button to load the game until you actually start doing something. Because most of these measurements they showed you was the loading screen, but they didn't show you the other steps you need to do before you are actually playing. Except for, of course, Forza Horizon, which if you're in the game, you get all these menus in front of you. You're just quickly pressing the B button until every one of these menus are gone. And you are in the game, you can drive and play the game. So, we've talked already about the loading times, so I will keep it short. In other words, no more talking about that. Now the other thing that Microsoft has promised, that every game, and they said this also about the Xbox One X, every game you play on the Series X will be better. And you know what? It's true. Let's start by backwards compatible. Not everyone is charmed of backwards compatible. They say we want to look into the future. I only want to play the new games. But me, I want it all. Especially since Microsoft has proven that they've done this right. Well, I guess in the team there are a few people that likes to make some changes. For instance, when I first got the Series X, and I started playing Grand Theft Auto 4, the game supported Auto HDR. I guess someone at Microsoft saw the movie of Digital Foundry where they said, well, we don't really care for the high dynamic range in Grand Theft Auto 4. We like the fast loading times and we like the continuously 60 frames per second gameplay with no dips, but we don't like the HDR. And I think they turned it off for that game. But me, I kind of liked the auto HDR function in the game. And this is what I meant with, I don't know if I said this before in my previous video, so let's say this again, and this is a message to Microsoft. Microsoft, if you're hearing me, I like it that you can turn on or off the auto HDR for certain games, because it doesn't work so nice with 2D games like Bejeweled 3. Then like the orange jewels, they look a lot like the red jewels, and so someone who's a little bit of colorblind might have a bit of problem. Why aren't they matching? Why aren't my jewels disappearing? Yeah, you're trying to move an orange jewel between two red ones. That doesn't work. So my hint for the next update, or how long it takes to make this or implement this, when you go to all your games, or for instance your pins, usually with the PC it's the right mouse button, but in this case, if you press the start button on top of one of these games where you want to set the settings, for instance data management and something like that, give us a new option, auto turn off HDR, so that the game, when you press it, it overrides the settings that you have in the normal settings. In the normal settings you can just turn on auto HDR and it will run for every game. But now let the user decide by a way of when you press start on a certain game, like Bejeweled, when I press start and I get the options what I can do with it, make one new one, turn on or off auto HDR. And in this way all my 3D games can run with the auto HDR on, and all the games that have problems with it, or when the colors doesn't seem right to me, then I can turn it off. So this saves me from, when I'm playing a 2D game, oh yeah, first I have to go to the settings, I have to turn off auto HDR, I'm playing my game, don't forget to turn it back on, because otherwise it's like, my game looks different. Oh yeah, I kind of forgot to turn back on the auto HDR. So it would be nice, because there aren't so much games that have problems with auto HDR. Well, at least not on my television. So give us an option that with every game separately we can turn off auto HDR. And the games where I'm not touching that function, let the option that I've got in the option menu decide whether I'm using auto HDR or not. So in this case, also people who doesn't have a television with HDR, then he can just go to the menu, in the option menu I mean, and then switch on, or better still off, because the TV doesn't support it, auto HDR, problem solved. He doesn't have to go to the start menu and then turn it off for every separate game. So that's the only thing that I'd say that I'm missing in the controls. They give you lots of options, you can customize everything. That is a big plus. And as a matter of fact, to me, most of the default settings, they work just fine for me, I'm used to them. I also truly like the things they changed in the update, and yeah, this is also working on the Xbox One series and the normal Xbox One, so not only the S and the X. But when you press the big X button on your controller, that you get to see that side menu. I like it that on the bottom of that side menu, you get to see all these shortcuts to, like the shop, all the recent messages or invites you've been given. So it's a nice way to keep things together, especially when you're playing a game, and then you can quickly press the Xbox button, go to the bottom of the screen on that side bar and select what you want to do. So it's not all negative. And now we were talking about the improvements, and this is why I've also landed on the HDR settings. So that is one improvement that I truly like, especially or almost mostly with the 3D games. Also, obviously, or never mind, I said I wasn't going to talk about the loading time, so yeah, but it's obviously the SSD drive gives lots better waiting times before you can start the game. Games like Grand Theft Auto 4, 5, big games like the one with the cowboy, which I still haven't started. I want to restart the game and try to get back in it. I kind of stopped with the game because yeah, every time when I started it up, it took so long. I thought, ah, never mind, I'll go do something else. So also the graphics, they improve. Yeah, you get to see this in much more detail when you go to the videos of Digital Foundry. But when a game has been made for the Xbox One X, and usually, well, a lot of them ran better than the PlayStation 4 Pro, but also a lot of games ran smoother on the PlayStation 4 Pro because the creators of the game were prioritizing resolution over the smoothness. So that automatic lowering of the resolution of the game when things get hectic, that doesn't work so aggressively on the Xbox One X. Well, and at this moment, I'm kind of happy that they did it this way. And why? Well, most of the games, if not all, because I haven't got all the games that are out there, so I can't check them all. But all the games that I've got, they don't dive down in resolution anymore. The frame rate is super stable. The gameplay turns into one consistent, responsive mechanic, and I truly get into the gaming more. So yes, it's true. The Series X does improve your gaming life, even compared to the One X, which already was kind of a beast of a console. Yeah, it could have been better, or they might have instructed the creators to implement a bit more aggressive downscaling when things get rough in the game. Because to my feeling, and this is also happening again with this new generation, it looks like all these developers are kissing the butt of Sony. Most of the games, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, they run smoother and a little bit better on the PlayStation 5, even though on paper the Series X should brute force its way through the game. So it almost feels like they do this on purpose because they want Microsoft to lose. Me, I'm not a fanboy of Microsoft. Yeah, it seems like it because yeah, I'm talking about the Series X, but yeah, that is what this video is all about. And if Sony had made enough PlayStation 5s, I've already had one of those as well, and I would have done a video about it. Also, how I felt about the console and what it brings to the table. Right now, I could only do a video about it, what other people say. That's not how I roll. I want to give you my own impression on a product, and in this case, the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5. So, yeah, this is why this video, it's mostly positive for the Series X. I say mostly, I already told you one minor thing that I would like to see added to the operating system, and that's what I said, the turning off of HDR on certain 2D games. So implement a on-off function when you press start on one of these games. And now another one, and that is, I've got two normal hard drives connected to the Series X. I've used them on the Xbox One X and they made it a lot slower. And luckily for me, these external hard drives doesn't seem to influence the speed of the Series X. The only thing, but that is because I'm starting to load something from that drive. Of course, loading from the external drives is slower. And also when you boot up your system and you go to your hard drive and you immediately dive into one of these external drives, you don't get to see all the games yet. You have to wait until the table of contents has been read into the memory of the Series X, and then you get to see what's on them. Also, when you want to go see if there are updates for your game, you go to update, it takes a long time. If I remove these hard drives, it's like really quick, then I get to see, no, there are no updates, or yeah, there are 1 or 2 games that needs an update. And you can go on. But when I connect them, then it takes quite a long time before you actually get to see if there are any games needing an update or not. You hear these drives also working, so when you go to see if there's updates and you start hearing the drives getting active, you know they are reading the table of contents. And I think, well, I'm not a game programmer or I don't create operating systems, but what I guess is what is happening is at the moment you want to check for an update, only at that time the game will connect to Microsoft, and then all these games, the contents of my hard drives will be compared to the actual games on the servers of Microsoft. And if there's a difference, in other words, if there's a newer version on the servers of Microsoft, we will get the update. But since the drives are so slow, it takes quite some time. So that is the second downfall of, well, a minor thing that I'd like to see improved. For instance, why is it only checking for updates when I'm actually going to the options or to all my games and then go to manage and then go to updates to see if there are updates, and then I get to hear these drives going really active. Why not, if I boot on the system, why not do a scan immediately after that? That would mean, because usually I'll start playing a game which is on my fast SSD drives. So for instance, I start playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Grand Theft Auto 5, you know what I mean. Everything that's big and usually takes a long time to start up, I'll start up and I'll play. So the game will be loaded from your SSD. In other words, there's no activity on the external drives. Why not use that time to already see if there's updates? It doesn't have to auto start the update when I'm playing if that is slowing down the game or gives performance issues. That's not a problem. I think Microsoft is better capable of judging what the console can or cannot do. So it would be nice if the checking for the updates would start immediately after I have signed into my profile, which is happening automatically because I let my controller sign my profile in. And also, if my controller somehow doesn't want to, because it happened once or twice with the Xbox One X, so I also turn on the option on the console that the profile has to sign in automatically. So yeah, that's also a small point for improvement. Maybe tweak something that it can start searching for updates after the system has been booted up. And the final part, before we go back to the fun things, the final part is, and this doesn't happen every time, but I do think it's like 30% of the time or 40% even, this does happen when I'm playing a game. It doesn't matter what game. When I boot up the system, I get to hear 2 times that sound that you're getting an achievement. But instead of that, it's a notification sound that my external drives C and D are ready. So for each drive, it will give a separate notification. Ploop! Yeah, that is C ready. Ploop! And that is D ready. That is normal. But now, even though my console said they are ready right at the start at the boot up of the system, when I'm playing a game and suddenly I get to hear that same sound, I think, yeah, I'm giving an achievement, I did something right, no, never mind. It's again the same notification that drives C and ploop, hey, there's another one. No, yeah, let me get a nice achievement. Never mind, it isn't an achievement. It's another notification. It's the other hard drive that is being notified by the console. But they were notified when I turned it on. Why does it need to notify once, twice? It even happened in one day. I get the same notification like 4 times in a row. In like 5 minutes playing, and I got 2 notifications. Another 5 minutes playing, I get 2 notifications, and so on and so on. And I was like, that's getting annoying really fast. And this, yeah, like I said, happens to me like 30 or 40% of the time I'm playing a game which lasts a long time. If I'm playing like Bejeweled or something like that, or Dual Quest, these games, I don't know, maybe it's because the console is falling asleep, it doesn't have to work so hard. These games it could run with his hand tied behind his back. But when I give it something to do that it actually has to work, then yeah, I get these notifications and sometimes 4 times in a row. But usually, lucky for me, it's only one time repeating the process. So like I'm playing like for 15 or 20 minutes and then suddenly it says only one time for each drive that these drives are ready. Yeah, they were ready in the beginning when the console booted up to begin with. So I don't know what it is. I never had the same problem with the Xbox One X. So I'm thinking it cannot be that they are not so compatible with the Series X, because to be honest, everything that I've tried that ran on the One X ran just as good or better on the Series X. So yeah, to me that's a question why this is happening. So yeah, and then of course back to the gaming experience, because well, that's what it's mostly about. Yeah, I've talked about the movies and the lack of support for 3D, but to be honest, yeah, since the Series X is here, I'm playing even more than usual. And why I'm playing more than usual? Do I have more time? No, but when I get out of bed to go to work, usually I have like 30 minutes or so left to do something for myself. That's for me the time of waking up. Usually in that 30 minutes before I need to leave for work, I grab the Switch or I grab the 3DS and I start playing a small game. Because of the waiting times, especially in the morning when you're here with your grumpy face and you're still on your coffee break and think, yeah, let's play a game, let's do something active to wake up the brain. And then, yeah, you're playing the same games over and over again. So, now the boot up times are so fast on the Series X, I'll just turn that on. Yeah, I can still play games like Bejeweled, Dual Quest, which were on the Xbox 360. But yeah, I even sometimes boot up Grand Theft Auto, or even try to do 1 or 2 missions in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, or even the very first Assassin's Creed, which I still love, and it had a 4K patch that was made for the Xbox One X, but it also works on the Series X. And that reminds me, and no, it's not a problem, but it's like a quality of life improvement that they could have done. And that is, every game that ran with a 4K patch on the One X runs also on the Series X. But if it didn't have a Series X patch, you don't get like a symbol in the game that it's been 4K capable. You only get to see that when the game is Xbox Series S and Series X upgraded. That either 4K or the high dynamic range or whatever they done to the game, when it has an upgrade to make it run better and look better on the Series S and X, then you get to see a nice notification that game has been made specially for your system. That is very nice. But why did they left out the Xbox One X improvements? I know they want the customers not to be confused, because Xbox One X sounds almost the same as Xbox Series X. I'm already used to the naming. Yeah, I still think they could have done things better with the naming wise, but I'm used to it, and now for me it's all natural that this is the Series X, and the console I gave to my father was the One X. But why not at least, if you think that the users will be confused, why instead of Xbox One X improvement notification, like a symbol in your game, how you say that? Yeah, English isn't my main language, but yeah, when you see that small picture that you would usually get to see on the gaming box if you buy the CD or DVD, Blu-ray game, the version, then why not just put a 4K label on there, so you know, well, that game has been given a 4K patch too. Like Panzer Dragoon Orta, that was an Xbox original game. It had a 4K patch for the Xbox One X. Why not just put a small 4K label in there? So at least we know what games run in 4K. It doesn't matter to me if that 4K was made for the Xbox One X or for the Xbox Series X. So that's another idea for Microsoft to, yeah, because it's very nice that you can, if you got a lot of games like I have, you can sort them out if you are looking for something that ran, for instance, in 4K, or if it runs an Xbox 360 game. And that works brilliantly. You can search for 360 games, you get to see the Xbox original Xbox games, and you can also just put everything together and search through your whole library. So library, never mind. So that would be also very nice if they would add this for the games that ran improvement patches on the Xbox One X. But, and that is what is more important to me, at least they didn't took it away. Games that also didn't have a notification on the Xbox One X, for instance Daytona USA. When you play this game on the normal Xbox One, and maybe also on the normal Xbox One S, you get to see all these road dividing lines to show you the lanes of the track. Usually they go blurry when they reach halfway through the screen. So from halfway through the screen to the horizon, these lines were very blurry, and halfway suddenly they were sharp. And somehow there was an update, or I don't know if it even was an update or it was the Xbox One X doing it all by itself, but these lines were no longer blurry halfway from the screen till the horizon. No, they were sharp from start to finish. So from the bottom of your screen until they disappear from your screen in the horizon. And it would be nice if games that get such a big improvement that it's that noticeable, it would be nice if they've been given like a name that they improve huge time as well. And as a matter of fact, I told this before, Grand Theft Auto 4 on the 360, well, I haven't actually memorized all these original frame rates. You can see them at Digital Foundry, but it ran not so great on the Xbox 360 where the game was released. Of course, it was impressive at that time because there was no free roam sandbox game like Grand Theft Auto with so much variation where you get to see reaction from the cops if you were doing stupid things. A small example, when my nephew and me were starting playing and trying to provoke the police and try to get the maximum amount of stars. I usually was the driver and he was sitting in the back of the car or next to me, but usually in the back of the car. And he was shooting everyone and I was trying to escape the police. Sometimes I got shot and then I got spawned like a block away from my nephew. But the fun thing to see was, and this is how much detail Rockstar put in the game, also online, so because this was online, so I think this also happens in the story, that the police, of course, they keep in contact with like their radio thingies. And so when I was respawning somewhere else, the police wasn't searching for me anymore because they shot me and I'm innocent again. You get to see, for instance, like people that usually guarding like Central Park, you get to see them running around, pulling someone out of a civilian car and try to hunt down my nephew who was still wreaking havoc on the city. So that was really fun to see that somewhere else in the city they still respond to what is happening a block down the road. So that is amazing. Yeah, that was cool. And yeah, so that game was already amazing for its time. Then we get the Xbox One X, or the backwards compatible on the normal Xbox One. Yeah, it already ran a bit better, but far from stable. And then the One X came, and I thought, well, now we get a stable gameplay. But no, sometimes, very sometimes, occasionally, the frame rate would dip even lower than the original game on the One X. I don't know what happened. It can be like a small mistake in the backwards compatibility, but the power of the Xbox One X wasn't high enough to prevent that from happening. And now, even though there was not an upgrade or update for the game, now with the Series X it just powers right through it at 60 frames per second. I started the game all over again, and right now I'm working already for Jimmy Pecorino, and that's reasonably close to the end of the game. And at the moment I haven't noticed slowdown or like a frame skip. It's all so fluid. Sometimes I make mistakes because I'm used to, for instance, at a point where there's slowdown in the game, usually you have to steer a bit sooner into a corner with your car when you're driving at high speeds. And right now, I still, because I work with muscle memories, it's also how I make my music. I remember which fingers I use on the keys, and that is, then I'm playing the music automatically. With gaming, it's exactly the same. So I'm playing a game, I'm used to how a game responds, and then I know, well, for this corner I need to turn in the corner from here. But now, usually I plow right into the sidewalk because I was turning too early. Because usually it responds slower. So yeah, I have to get used to it. It took like 2 or 3 hours or something like that before I finally had that feeling that, oh yeah, it's consistent, it works the same every time. And this is why, even in the beginning of the 360 days, on the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, Xbox One X, in these generations that the game ran, I never cared so much for the racing in the game. I like how the cars, the bouncy springies, and the handling in general, when there was no slowdown, I like. But with the racing, especially when cars were piling onto each other and you get into a corner, then sometimes it was really chugging along. So it felt like, are you going to freeze on me, or are we going, no, never mind, we're going. So, and that is so much improved. Yeah, I know this video is taking a long time, but this is how much things improves in there. There's no more way that the gameplay is inconsistent. And you know what? I've done a few of these races that Brucey and that other guy, where in the story you steal his yellow or orange like Porsche, and you get to do the first race. After this you get an SMS from Brucey. Yeah, the guy that gives you the car, he wants you to do some races. And right now I am doing these races, and they're much more fun because now it works like a real racing game. So if you got a feel for the car, you got a feel for the car. It doesn't change when you are still in last place trying to work your way through a lot of cars that are in front of you. No more slowdown, no more changes in how the game handles. And that is what I actually want to end this video with. That this what I'm telling you right here works for every game that runs with variable results on previous generation Xboxes. All these games are stable, responsive, and that doesn't change. Yeah, you get to see these videos from Digital Foundry showing you that sometimes a game dips 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 frames. But when a game runs 60 frames per second and loses for a short while 5 frames, me, I don't notify that. That game that's quite negatively in the news recently, from start to now, Cyberpunk. Well, I don't have, at the moment, because I didn't play too far into the story yet, but at the moment I didn't notice any real problems or something like that. So yeah, I'm not far enough into the game. I've seen a video in Digital Foundry where these AI people, they were walking into thin air above a sidewalk instead of they were walking on the sidewalk. So yeah, that was funny to see. There are still problems with the game, but performance wise, I don't notice it that much. So yeah, having so much power in your console brute forces through a lot of things that should give you problems on the previous generation now, or completely removes these problems, or make them so stable that you don't notify it either that much or at all. And in my case, it's at all. Maybe it's the age starting to show. I mean, yeah, my nickname Music Maniac 1965, that was the year I'm born in. So you know that at the moment I'm 55 years old, so maybe I don't notice too much in these responses anymore. But like I said, I do still notice it when I'm playing GTA 4 on my Xbox 360. That's the only older Xbox I still have. Oh no, and I got the original Xbox, but that doesn't have the game. It had a different Grand Theft Auto game. I kind of forgot it, the name. But the one after Vice City. But I didn't care too much for that story, so I didn't play it too much. Okay, well, that was it. So now you know, overall, I'm really satisfied with the console. I will not give it a score, but if you heard what my opinions are, the things for improvement. Well, I want to leave you with the words. Yeah, I do think it's worth buying, even so early in the generation. I also think Microsoft will solve a lot of these problems, maybe even all. It would be really nice to see these changes that I've talked about. But I know that with this pandemic, you get to see it with Sony, you get to see some negative presentations about the PlayStation 5 being a bit louder than they expected. Like that cooling fan noise, or coil whine or something that they called it. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Well, thanks for watching and have a nice day.